Welcome to the Alchemy, Astrology, and AstroHealth Podcast. I'm Myra Etla, medical astrologist, astroherbalist, and green witch. I was diagnosed with endometriosis at 19, and I was told I would never have children. I healed my body through the power of herbs, alternative health practitioners, energy healing, and more. At 28, I had the baby they said I would never have, without any interventions. I refused to believe that my body was not able to heal itself. Along this journey, I stumbled across medical astrology, and it resonated with me so much. I started down the path to learning this unique system that had been used for thousands of years in the medical community. I now help other women heal their bodies using their cosmic blueprint, the unique blueprint that every person has embedded in their DNA from the stars. This system helps me see what's going on in your body on a cosmic level and exactly how to help you give your body what it needs to heal itself. We are all uniquely and amazingly designed, and when we learn to work with our design, love ourselves for how we are designed to function, and integrate the cosmos into our lives, I truly believe that we can see true and lasting health brought into our lives. If you are ready to change your life, heal your body, and learn to deeply love who you are, this podcast is for you. Come join me as I discuss medical astrology, astronutrition, astroherbalism, health, wellness, spirituality, transformation, and so much more. I'm so excited you are joining me. All right. I know. You are sick of me telling you to drink water and take electrolytes. But let me tell you, it's totally worth it. This is why I love elements so much, though. It's because they are science-backed. They're formulated to contain just the right amount of sodium, potassium, magnesium to ensure that all of that water that I encourage you to drink on a daily basis in pretty much every episode is going to go where it needs to, is going to stay there, right? There is no point in drinking so much water daily if you're just going to pee most of it right back out. No one wants to be living in the bathroom. I'm sure that less time in the bathroom is definitely a plus there. And if you have been wanting to check out Element, I have a good news for you. I actually have a referral link now that you can use to purchase Element through. And in doing so, you receive a free sample pack with your first order through that link. This only applies to the first order currently, but hey, free is free, am I right? So if you are ready to up your hydration game, keep that gallon of water I am making you drink daily inside your body, click that referral link in the show notes and go snatch you up some Element today. My favorite flavors are raspberry salt, citrus salt, and the chocolate salts. They have a chocolate mint that is delicious and it goes really great with a protein shake, a chocolate protein shake. After I've had a really hard workout, it helps replenish me. It gives me all the potassium, sodium, and magnesium that I just sweated out back, as well as tasting delicious. It's great in hot chocolate and coffee as well. So perfect times. They are great for cold weather mainly. I do not like them as much in the summer, the chocolate ones, but the other ones are great. You can add a dash of sweet and salty to your favorite warm beverage. So go now to the link, get your free sample pack of Element today with your first order. Enjoy it. Let me know what you think about it because it's my absolute fucking favorite electrolyte brand. And that's that. Back to your regularly scheduled program. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Alchemy, Astrology, and AstroHealth. I'm Myra Atla. I'm your host, and today we are going to be talking about Mercury. So we are doing the Medical Astrology 101, the planets, and we are on the last planet of the inner 7, and then we will be doing the outer 3 in one episode together, and then Chiron, and then we will be done with this series. I feel like it's been a forever long series, even though it hasn't. And I'm excited to finish it up and move on to other things, but also excited that I've been able to share all of this with you. So let's jump into Mercury. Mercury is the fastest planet in our solar system. It orbits the sun in 88 days, and it is actually the closest to the sun as well. So we are going to see that fastness that it has in its quality can also pertain to the fastness that we see it influencing, in our lives as well. So when we talk about to the 7 inner planets, this is the only planet without an accompanying polar planet. So we have the sun and the moon, Venus and Mars, Saturn and Jupiter, and then we have Mercury. And Mercury is all by itself, and we will discuss why that is as well today. And because Mercury is so close to the sun and moves so fast, many people would think that Mercury's influence would be very hot and drying, but that's not actually the case here. It is drying in many ways, but not because it's hot. It's more because it moves so fast, it creates wind, and then that wind dries things out, right? So it's drying because of that type of property and not because it's hot. Like Mars and the sun are hot and they're drying because of that heat, right? It's a little different, but is definitely drying for sure in many ways for some people. And I'm sure you're all familiar, right? That even if you're not familiar with astrology and you don't really believe in it, y'all know about Mercury retrograde, and everyone knows that it just seems to fuck things up in our technology-driven world today when we go into that. And this is because all forms of communication and technology, for the most part, fall under Mercury's governance, right? So retrogradation is when a planet appears to move backwards through the sky from our point of view on Earth. It affects all the planets except for the sun and the moon. So all planets at one point in time will go retrograde. Due to Mercury's fast nature, though, we do see Mercury going retrograde approximately 3 times a year for 3 weeks each time. It goes a lot quicker into retrograde than other planets. Other planets take months, years even, in many cases, to go retrogrades. Mercury, again, just exhibiting its fast nature there, right? Retrograde planets are when the energy and influence of that planet shifts more inwards instead of outwards. So in case of medical astrology, right, this can show more of a health problems that's caused by psychosomatic reasons, trauma in the past that's trapped in the body, or even a deep-seated chronic health issue. So if you have a planet in retrograde in your natal chart, that can be signs of more of an inward problem more than an outward problem. What that means is the root cause tends to be, as I mentioned, a little different, and it's a little harder sometimes to suss out for some people because you tend to keep the symptoms even aren't so outward. They tend to be more inward, racing thoughts and pain in the body, places that they're not symptoms that other people can see, right? Mercury is never more than 28 degrees from the sun in the skies, never more than 28 degrees from the sun. So this actually kind of shows a good thing here because Mercury rules the mind, sun rules our heart, and we can see that this really close relationship that Mercury has with the sun, that it's showing us that our mind is meant to be close to our hearts. We are always to be in direct communication with our hearts, right? Our emotional centers, to translate the information that we're receiving throughout our bodies. Mercury reflects the light of the sun and the infrared and radio waves like the moon, which is symbolic of the polar qualities we usually see in the balancing planet for each planet, right? Normally we see that balancing quality in the 2 planets, and Mercury holds those balancing qualities within itself, which is why we see Mercury not having a polar planet. The element for Mercury. So Mercury is closely associated with the air element, though we can also see a small association to the earth element as well due to its rulership of Virgo. In Ayurveda, we also see a close correspondence to the ether, which is the spirit of a person. So there's basically still the spirit is more kind of considered more close to an air element, an air quality as well in Ayurveda. So that air element, which is what I was talking about earlier, leads to the drying of Mercury in the chart for many people. The glyph for Mercury on the natal chart looks kind of like a little stick person with horns. It's a combination of the cross, the crescent, and the circle. So it's a vertical line with a small horizontal line across the bottom, a circle on top of the vertical line, and then a crescent sitting on top of the circle with the points going upwards. And Mercury is supposed to be the embodiment of Hermes, which was also known as the thrice great. And so we see that reflected in the use of the 3 parts to make that glyph. We'll see a lot of the number 3 associated with Mercury. And so we see that in its glyph, we see that in its nature, we see that number 3 being brought up often in Mercury. As far as what Mercury rules the lungs, communication in the body via the nervous system. It has some correspondence to the thyroid gland, the hormonal system in general, the pairs of the body in general. So the arms, the hands, the legs, the eyes, the ears, anything that has a pair in the body. We see it having some correspondence to digestion as well due to its Virgo rulership. And this makes sense that we see these rulerships because Gemini rules the nervous system, Virgo the digestive system, and these two are intimately connected to each other, right? Many times our digestion is highly affected by our emotions, stress, other outside factors that affect our internal nervous system. So this is really why it's so important to eat your meals in a quiet place where you can take a moment to say a grateful thanks for the food and eliminate as many distractions as possible. Eating in front of the TV, eating while we're driving to the next place that we need to be, eating when we're on our phone scrolling is not good for our bodies. It can really truly fuck up your digestion, which then in turn can lead to many other health problems due to the lack of proper digestion that breaks things down appropriately so that our bodies can use them as we should, right? So this is why one of the main things that I teach a lot of my clients when I see that they're having digestive issues is to do that, right? Quiet atmosphere, say the grateful thanks, be surrounded by people that you love that are not making you anxious or upset or stressed out if at all possible. Make the majority of your meals fit that environment, right? I know in our society it's all about go, 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 go. Let's get from this place to that place and this place to that place. And we got to go do all these things. And our bodies just are not made to do that, y'all. We're not made to be on the go all the time. And eating on the go or eating while we're like watching something else or eating while we're like working at our desks at work and we're trying to do that, it does not work. Our bodies are not made to be digesting while also trying to be under the stress of whatever you're putting your nervous system under at that moment. There's two nervous systems, right, in our body. We have the parasympathetic nervous system and we have like the central nervous system. So we also have the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is like, it controls all the stuff like we do without thinking, like breathing and all that stuff. It also is like our fight or flight response system. So if, you're walking and a bear comes to attack you, it is the system that kicks everything into high gear to get you the fuck out of there away from the danger, right? When we're under any kind of stress, our body activates that nervous system. And our bodies can't distinguish stress of let's get away from this predator that's trying to kill us and the stress of I have this deadline that I have to meet by this time or I'm going to lose my job. To your body, that is all the same kind of stress, and that all requires a sympathetic nervous system to be activated. When that system is activated, blood flow gets diverted from all non-essential systems. So anything that is not necessary in that moment to keep you alive is going to not get as much blood flow, and it's going to be the majority of blood flow is going to be diverted to the main organ. So your brain, your heart, your lungs, and any muscles that are required to get you out of there. Mainly leg muscles, right? Because they're going to need you to run away. And so that's where most of the blood flow is going to go. Guess where it's not going to be? And it's not going to be in your stomach, so it can help digest that large meal you just ate. It's not going to be going to your intestines. It's not going to be headed toward the liver or the pancreas or the gallbladder to help secrete all the stuff your body needs to break down all of the fats and nutrients and proteins and carbs that you just ate. And it's not going to be helping you digest food in that moment in time. So when we are putting our bodies under so much stress and we don't take time to de-stress before we eat, we are constantly in that like stressful situation. Our bodies don't digest well and we don't get the nutrients that we need. And then ultimately over time, as that builds up, we start getting, malnourished in some areas. We're not getting all the proper nutrition. We start feeling sick. We get fatigue. We get chronic health issues that crop up because of this. And the root cause mainly is that like stress, right? So you want to be in a place where you put your body into your parasympathetic nervous system, which is what some people call the rest and digest nervous system. This is the system and nervous system that we want to be in, right? That helps our body relax. It helps our body calm down. It helps put all of the blood flow into the digestive system that it needs when you've just eaten a meal, right? Instead of diverting that away so that everything will work properly and your body can break things down as you need them. So this is why it's super important to not just be going while eating. They say stress causes weight gain for many people, and it does, but it's weight gain because when you do finally break stuff down, your body is like, oh, we need extra fat to be stored because we're under stress all the time. And fat, guess where? Glycogen, the chemical that gets converted from glucose, we get to store extra glucose, which is what we use for energy in our bodies. It gets stored in fat. So the more fat we have on our bodies, the more glycogen we can store for an emergency, right? And if our body is constantly under stress and thinks everything going on in our lives is an emergency, it's going to create stores that it needs to get you out of these emergent situations all the time. So if you find yourself like, I'm gaining weight and I don't feel like I'm doing anything, I'm definitely not eating too much and I'm doing this, your body might just be under too much stress and we need to work on that, right? So that is one of the things that I see happens a lot, is that communication between the nervous systems and the digestive system really being impeded upon in many, many people, which is what leads ultimately to a lot of the health problems that they end up having and they come see me for. We also see rulership over two different zodiac signs, as I already mentioned, Gemini and Virgo. And this kind of seems odd at first for many because like Gemini and Virgo seem like they're totally opposite signs and that they wouldn't really both fall under Mercury's governance. But let's kind of see how they would actually, right? In Gemini, we see the Vata quality of Mercury being shown. Vata is like the light, flowy air type energy in Ayurveda. And we see this through the mutable air sign, Gemini, right? And the rulership of the third house that Gemini holds. So in this house, we see communication with other people through words, but we also see our perception of the world. So how we communicate with them, how we receive the communication we are surrounded by, and how those are translated in our brain's neural networks. This ultimately has to do with listening to the communication that we are receiving. So we see the goal here in Gemini is to have the perception of our inner world and our outer world matching each other. In Virgo, which rules the sixth house, we see that mutable earth quality. So it is much more grounding than mutable air. So we see that balancing effect here of pulling an airy Mercury back down to the earth, right? So instead of being always caught up in the mind, we're trying to ground them back down to reality as well and back into the here and now and not so much in the past and the future. So we see in the sixth house being the house of work and the house of health. So in this house, we find our skills and the unique gifts we are meant to share with the world. So our communication with others through our work, through our hobbies, through our arts, through our, whatever way we have of communicating in this house. So you see how they're both about communication, but they're both about communication in a slightly different way. So that's why they both fall under Mercury's governance, right? So we definitely can see that they both fall under that for sure. It just seems weird at first when you maybe don't understand exactly why that's happening, right? Why they picked Mercury for those two signs. Mercury also governs Wednesday, what used to be called Woden's Day after Odin, the Norse god. He was the ruler of Asgard and the gods in general of the Norse, pantheon. And we see him having the ability to travel between all the worlds, all the realms of the Norse beliefs as well. So, which is kind of how Mercury, the planet, works in medical astrology. It is its own balancing planet, but it also balances all of the other planets. It can travel, right? According to medical astrology, its influence can travel to all the other planets and help balance them out. So we see that correspondence to the Egyptian god Thoth as well. Though technically Thoth was the god of the moon, we do see the correlation here because Thoth was said to bring down to the Egyptians the knowledge of the heavens and the earth, their spiritual science, their magic, their astrology, their system of medicine, and the spirituality that they practiced, right? So we can see that, again, communication and knowledge being brought to them, which is what Mercury is all about. We also can see many similarities between Mercury and Hermes as well. So Hermes/Mercury were the messengers to the gods. Mercury was the Rome equivalent to the Greeks' Hermes. They were able to travel between the earth and the home of the gods and deliver messages back and forth to each. So in this is why we see Mercury has no balancing planet. Mercury is the balancer to all planets. He's able to weave between them all as the messenger, the communicator, and the weaver of the above and below and the inner and the outer. So Mercury does its own balancing. It doesn't need a balancing planet. As far as symbols associated with Mercury, we see here the tarot card that corresponds with Mercury in the major arcana is the Magus or the Magician, which is card number 1. Mercury is also an androgynous planet, so it's a gender neutral planet, right? It has no assigned gender like the other ones. They talk about like Venus is a female and Mars is a male and Saturn is, all that stuff. Though we often hear Mercury referred to as a he, that's not really a true way of, because it's not an assigned gender. They're gender neutral. So they would probably be a more appropriate reference to Mercury, but we do see it often in literature when you're reading referred to as he, just as an FYI. As far as other deities and symbols associated with Mercury, we see the metal Mercury, also known as quicksilver. It's a very, malleable, quick-moving liquid, almost basically is what it looks like, metal that is quick absorbing into different things. And so we see the governance over Mercury, the metal. We also see, as I mentioned earlier, Thoth, Hermes, and Mercury, obviously, as far as like other deities go. And then we also see Nebu or Nabu, which are Babylonian deities, Buddha, which is with 1 D, so this makes it the Hindu god, not to be mistaken with Buddha with 2 Ds, which is for a whole different system. As far as animals, we see it corresponding to coyote due to its trickster archetype, and the hawk, as the hawk is a messenger, right, in many belief systems and carries information from the spirit to the earth. As far as like more modern day associations, Peter Pan and Data in Star Trek also round out the mercurial archetypes here. As far as influence goes, Mercury's influence is fairly neutral. For the most part, it's considered a like neutral planet in medical astrology. It can create tension, as I mentioned, though, throughout the body and the nervous system, which can lead to anxiety and depression due to its association with the air element. So this can be like a cold tension or a heat tension, depending on which sign it is in. However, though, we usually see Mercury being rather benign in its influence for many people. As far as astronutrition goes, Mercury governs thiamine or vitamin B1, and it does not govern any minerals like other planets govern, vitamins and minerals. Mercury only governs one vitamin B1, thiamine. So let's discuss vitamin B1 then, right? So vitamin B1 or thiamine is actually a super crucial vitamin for the communications of the body. It's also necessary for carbohydrate metabolism, converting carbs into glucose for energy, right? It's water soluble, it's not stored well in the body, so daily intake is absolutely necessary. Thiamine is necessary for the production of hydrochloric acid in the stomach as well, which is part of the first communication the body has with the food that you're intaking, right? So the first part of digestion starts in the mouth by chewing and adding saliva to the food, which contains enzymes that help start the breakdown process. And then the first really like true quote unquote communication that you have with the internal body is in the stomach, right? So that's the first part of communication. We also see communication with the inner and outer world in our lungs too. As we inhale, right, we're inhaling whatever's out in the world, and then we exhale whatever is inside of us back out again. So there's like that also communication. So that's why we also see Mercury ruling the lungs. And without proper amounts of thiamine in our diets to make hydrochloric acid, food will just sit and stagnate in our stomach for hours, sometimes days, which leads to gas being produced, which then leads to heartburn, flatulence, which is farting, a lot of like farting gases, right? And gastroenteritis, which is an irritation of the stomach lining, which can eventually lead to ulcers and erosions if there's high levels of hydrochloric acid aren't back up where they need to be, and if thiamine levels stay too low. So it can lead to a bunch of issues in the gut health and the stomach health especially, and we need our stomachs to be functioning well, right, so that we can start that first process of digestion where we really are breaking down the foods so that we can absorb them and the nutrients from them properly. Thiamine is also needed for a healthy nervous system. The lack of thiamine can lead to neuritis, which is like an inflammation of the nerves throughout the body. And in turn, this can lead to multiple sclerosis. So you will eventually, if you have a really low amount of thiamine, it doesn't get brought up, it can lead to neuritis, which then can lead to MS, multiple sclerosis. Burning and tingling in the hands and feet can also be a sign of thiamine deficiency and the need to start taking more in. So where can you find thiamine, right? Let's talk about that. So thiamine can be found in artichokes, asparagus, pinto and kidney beans, lima beans, chickpeas, coconuts, grapefruit, pomegranates, bacon, ham, beef heart and liver, pork, whole wheat flour, egg yolks, nutritional yeast, dulse, kelp, and as far as herbs go, bladderwrack, fenugreek, and parsley. There is a much more extensive list than that. I only picked out a few so you can get started. If you want more options, you can Google what foods to find thiamine in, and you can find some more options there as well. Daily optimal dosing is 50 milligrams daily. Most people, if you're not having too much of a deficiency, 5 to 10 milligrams is usually enough. But again, since it is not stored and it is used, if you're under a lot of stress, you're going to need higher dosing to ensure that your body is actually getting the amount that it needs. As with all B vitamins, it works best when taken in conjunction with the rest of the B complex. It works better when taken in conjunction with vitamin C and vitamin E. And manganese and sulfur are useful in helping to assimilate these as well, which are ruled by Jupiter and Saturn, respectively. So we see kind of all the planets working together. Vitamin C is ruled by Saturn, vitamin E is ruled by Venus, and then the rest of the B complex is ruled by the Sun, the Moon, Mars, Venus. Saturn has some, Jupiter has some, even Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto have some. So we see how the one B vitamin that Mercury rules needs pretty much every other planet's vitamins, minerals to be absorbed properly. So we see again how that's Mercury bringing its balance, right, to everything and every other planet balancing Mercury. They're all balance each other out. As far as positive correspondences with Mercury, when Mercury is being positively expressed in one's life, we see a clear mind that is really able to process information in a logical and timely way. One can comprehend things and expand their minds out into the ethers and gather new and innovative information from the linear and the nonlinear realms. There is a balance in the receptivity and the activity of the mind. There's an ability to clearly communicate through speech and written words. And they have a really good, strong capacity to listen closely and truly hear what people are communicating to them. So the inner world is translated to the outer world through language. And when one is positively expressing Mercury, they feel they are really expressing themselves in a way that will ensure they are truly heard and understood. So we see Mercury bridging relationships as well through that, right? Because the health of our relationships, which is ruled by Venus, is really founded in good communication and listening skills. If those two things break down, the relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic or friendship or a work relationship, whatever it is, will eventually break down along with it, right? Because if we're not communicating, we're not understanding each other, things get lost in miscommunications and they're misunderstood, and we start making assumptions about things, and it breaks down our relationships. I also see, if it's positively expressed, inspiration and openness to one's mind. They see new things. They see things that are new to them in things that they have never experienced or seen before, right? And they really are open to all that newness and that new experience. But there is a trickiness to Mercury here, though, right? We can tend to learn something new in our minds, like we learn something and we're like, yes, and then we feel like we know it all, or that we have gained some kind of new wisdom that now no one else holds, and so we are turned into a know-it-all, right? We can be deceived into thinking that we now know, and we need no more teachings, no more learnings, we got it. While Mercury does bring us knowledge and information, it's knowledge and information that only resides in our minds. So we need to learn how to move that knowledge from our minds into our hearts, how to really embody those teachings to then transform them into wisdom that we can share with others. In its healthy and positive expression, I also see non-attachment, which is a good thing in some ways because this is seen as being able to adapt and quickly change to circumstances that are many times like beyond our control. So not being attached to only a certain outcome, right? So we can move through difficult times with ease and grace, letting go of how things should be and adopt an attitude of, well, this is how it is. And so how can I work with what it is instead of what I wish it would be. Negative correspondences. When Mercury is negatively expressed in one's life, we see the positive attributes we just mentioned becoming the shadow side of Mercury. We see one becoming too mutable, too easily changeable. They lack direction and groundedness. They are too over flexible and they have no roots to anchor them in. And if it reaches an excess, we see one who is not strongly rooted in their own sense of self. They end up identifying with everyone else around them, especially close people in their communities or like their life partners. They have poor boundaries in every aspect of life. To fix this, you need to firm up your energetic boundaries. You need to ground your soul back into your body and you need to create some roots, right, to help hold you firmly back to the earth and not floating away with every little whim and change. One can also experience random scattered thinking and repetitive thought patterns that just loop back on themselves. The classic rumination of one thing over and over. Excessive Mercury in one's life can show up as talking too much and not taking the time to listen or receive what others have to say and like give in that communication. Basically, you're just like monologuing and not letting anyone else into the conversation. You like to hear yourself speak, but you don't really care if anybody else is listening. There's too much like up in the head and not enough grounding into the heart where the truth ultimately lies. Moving on to herbal correspondences. These are like the actions and the reasons that we would reach for this herb to, bring about what we're looking for over another. So Mercury ruled plants tend to have the following. They're very aromatic, right? This is literally a plant that is embodying two realms at once, the physical, where the plant is currently residing, where we see it, and then the spiritual, where the aroma of that plant actually permeates your body on like a spiritual level. So it is literally in two realms at once, which really is like Mercury, right? It's up in the mind and it's down in the heart. So it's up in the air and it's down on the earth all at the same time. It's diffusive. This means they embody a high degree of activity and movement and move quickly into the circulatory system as well as the nervous system once one ingested as a tea or a tincture or however you're taking it. They have a sweet taste. Sweet tasting herbs are not something that like necessarily tastes like sugar or like a dessert like we think of when we think sweet, but it just means they have like a really pleasant flavor that isn't bitter and it's not off-putting either, right? And these are actually an antipathetic action of Mercury because they bring moisture and tonifying to dry parts of the body. So that sweet taste would be something you would want to use to bring moisture back into a dried Mercury, person, someone who's experiencing a drying Mercury influence in their life. The other actions that we see are they are expectorants, so they help move fluids out of the body. It's particularly like mucus when you have like a bad cold or cough that is like congesting the lungs and you're just constantly coughing up crap. An expectorant helps you get that out of your lungs, right? Antispasmodics, which are helpful for like nervous system issues that are like overworked, overburdened, nervous system that is causing like spasms throughout the body, so it can help calm those down. Nervines, which again help work and calm the nervous system. Carminatives, which we discussed in a previous episode, but they help reduce gas, right, in the digestive system and they help things move through better and as they should. So again, we see that decreasing that wind tension that Mercury can bring to the digestive system. And then we see demulcents, which are herbs that are very moistening. They bring moisture to the body by either ingesting them or by turning them into a cream and putting them on our skin, right? So again, we see that being more of the antipathetic action to Mercury. And the others are more sympathetic actions. Herbs governed by Mercury then. So the ones I see here are Osha, Lomatium, Angelica, elderberry, fennel, gotu kola, ginkgo biloba, St. John's wort, calamus, sage, yarrow, and mullein. These all fall under Mercury's domain, though, as you've known from previous episodes, many of them also have co-rulers of other planets as well. And again, this is because of Mercury's triplicate nature and ability to move between and balance all planets. So a lot of the herbs assigned to Mercury are also assigned to other planets because of that, right? Let's just touch on a few of these because that's way too many to deep dive into all of them. First, let's touch on fennel. Fennel is an amazing herb at helping an upset digestive system that is filled with gas. It is a carminative, it's safe for babies, it's safe for pregnant and lactating women as well. So it's basically a one-size-fits-all herb, right? It can be used in cooking, it can be turned into a tea. It is a quick and efficient treatment for gas, colic, and trapped wind tension in the body. I love fennel. I used it a lot when my kids were little because immature digestive systems can sometimes tend toward wind tension, trapped gas a lot more than an adult and fully formed digestive system. And so fennel is a really great way to help babies, especially as they start transitioning to more solid foods. Sage, co-ruled by the sun, because we already mentioned that in the sun one, but this herb is amazing for helping the mind settle, focus, and bring that runaway mind and energy, right, that we were talking about earlier, down into the heart so that one can truly communicate their truth. I love sage for my family and myself, and we use it in cooking and making tea to drink it as well. It's super useful for helping open the lungs during a cold. It helps calm the nervous system, and it can even help with sore throats and mouths from like sores, strep throat infections, postnasal drip, etc. So I like that. I actually combine it a lot of times with thyme and or rosemary, and we'll get that diffusive action that we want, as well as an expectorant. It kind of calms things down when things are overactive, when we're sick sometimes, like you just get that like cough phase where you can't stop, you just cough, 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 cough constantly. And so mixing those together can really help, and thyme adds an added benefit too of really helping with sore throats from all the above mentioned stuff. So those can kind of work together to really help alleviate a lot of that. Yarrow, then. I love this herb. I use it so much. It's not even funny. It's one of the most amazing herbs that I use in my practice. It really helps alleviate tension throughout the body that is causing muscle spasms and pain. So I use it for so many of my clients who are suffering from dysmenorrhea, which is super painful periods. Those who are having period cramps of some sort, who get a lot of like tension in their body during their periods or as they get closer to their periods, where even if they're not having period cramps, it's like something else always hurts in the body. Their back is hurting, their legs are hurting, there's something else is going on at the same time. I use it for that too. So it's super great. It is also a styptic, which means that it really helps stop the flow of bleeding. So I also use it quite often for any of my clients who are suffering from heavy periods as well, because it can really help slow that down and stop it. And you want to mix it with like a red raspberry leaf, which helps tonify the uterus at the same time, so that we are helping not only stop the current symptom right in the body, but we're helping prevent it from coming back again as we tonify that uterus and get those tissues nice and tight again and not so lax, so they're not just bleeding so heavily. It's also great for helping the vascular system tighten up as well. So it's great for like varicose veins, those kind of things, right? And it's used in creams for that. You can also take it as a tea for that. But I find the creams work a little bit better, especially in conjunction with some like horse chestnut in there, to really help tighten those veins back up and help with the varicose veins and the pain that can come from those as well. So last but not least, let's talk about ways to balance the influence of Mercury. Since Mercury is the balancer of all other planets, there's not really another planet to lean into, right, to bring balance back to Mercury, not just one specific one. Like with Venus, right, we want to lean more into our Mars side to bring more balance. If we find that we're having, maybe too much Venus, we want to lean more into Mars to bring that balance. If we're having, too much Saturn, we want to lean into Jupiter to balance it out. Mercury doesn't have that. You can pretty much use any of the other planets to balance out Mercury, and you can use Mercury to balance out any of the other planets as well. So I find really that just depending on what is going on with Mercury in your chart, bringing moisture into the body is usually the best way to help with whatever is happening and to balance Mercury, because almost every single person that I know on this planet could use more moisture and hydration in their body. So like that's just like my go-to for so many things, because chronic dehydration is a huge issue in our planet. So there's that. That is usually the best way. If you tend toward the dry side of things, right, if you're very dry or dehydrated, this can lead to a burned out nervous system, a dried out brain, a digestive system that's super dry, and that leads to constipation. So hydration with water and oil is good. So you want not only to make sure you get enough fluids throughout the day, but you also want to make sure you're getting plenty of healthy fats in your diet as well. Make sure you're getting your electrolytes in with element also, right? Make sure you're getting all of those electrolytes so that you maintain and retain all of that water that you're drinking. If you are experiencing a racing brain that likes to ruminate a lot, this is typical of a brain that needs some moisture. Remember, our brains are basically balls of like fatty jello in liquid, suspended in liquid. And if we don't have enough liquid and we don't have enough fats, our brain is unhappy, right? And it can lead to a lot of that racing brain, rumination, brain fog. It can lead to so many of those issues, and that is why. So make sure you're getting plenty of hydration. Journaling is actually really good here too. If you get caught in one of those rumination cycles, writing down what you're thinking about and brainstorming like ways that you could fix that. If it's like a problem that you're contemplating on, right? If it's something that happened in the past, writing it down and saying, at the time I did this, knowing now I would have done this, but I did the best that I could in the situation at the time with the knowledge that I had. Can sometimes just get those thoughts to quit. Sometimes it's just our body's way of saying, hey, I want to work through what happened and I just keep ruminating on it. Write it down. Short circuit that thought process, right? Put a wheel in the, put a stick in the spoke of the wheel, right? Get it to stop spinning so that you can get out of that rumination and you can get some sleep and some rest and, work on other things. And as always, you can never go wrong by adding more sun in your life. So get outside in the sun, soak up all the goodness, lay on the ground while doing so, right? So you help bringing that grounding that Mercury can really use so many times. So that is everything for Mercury. If you are wanting to know more about how Mercury is acting in your chart and what to do to bring balance and restore health, you need to sign up for a medical astrology reading because I will detail all of that for you and so much more. And then we can get together to discuss everything that I found and help you devise a plan to reach those goals for your health that you are wanting to reach. You can find all my current offers and ways to work with me by going to www.astrology.com/everything. Okay? Again, that's www.astrology.com/everything. Sign up for a medical astrology reading, order yourself some element, join my new Astro Aligned Kitchen program, download any of the freebies that you haven't gotten yet. Come join the Astro Connection community. Come find us, right? Come find me. Let's work together. Let's get to know each other better. Let's talk. I just like to talk to you guys one-on-one too, not just over the podcast. So come join me. Everything you need for today will be in the show notes. And I look forward to talking to you next time. Love and light. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Alchemy, Astrology, and AstroHealth. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed making it. You can find all relevant links to today's show in the show notes below. If you loved the show today, please subscribe, follow, and leave me a review. I love to hear your thoughts, and it helps me know what is a hit and to make more of that content, especially for you. If you want to learn more about me and how I can help you, head over to atlasastrology.com. There you can sign up for a medical astrology package, download my free sun sign in your health ebook, read the blog, and so much more. If you want to connect more outside the podcast, follow my Instagram channel @AtlaAstrology or join my Astro Connection community, the link to which you can find in the show notes. Until next time, love and light.